All right, so let's look at stock. And here we're looking at Apple Incorporated, and it's traded on the NASDAQ. And so here, this is the company name, Apple Inc. It's shown at the top of our chart. Under that is the stock exchange, which is again the NASDAQ. And that's where it's listed. And now to the right of the stock exchange is the trading symbol for Apple. So Apple is AAPL. So if you're looking up Apple, this is how you would actually look it up and type it in, and that's what you're going to look for. Okay, that's its trading symbol. Now, the number shown in the largest font here, that's going to be its closing price in dollars. Now, when the stock market closed on July 9th, which is what we see here, July 9th at 7:59 Eastern Time, it had a listing price of $145.11 per share. Now, the net change is going to be what shows here. So it looks like it went up here, $1.87, which is 1.31% per share. So that's kind of how we look at it. So the change of stock went up from one closing to the next, $1.87 or 1.31%. Now, the opening price in dollars is the share price when Apple stock traded for the first time on July 9th in 2021, and that is the 142.75. So it opened here. And the price varied throughout the trading day, reaching a high of 145.65 and a low of 142.65. So we had a high, that's where it was trading at during the day, and the low it traded at during the day. Now, in the second column, we see the PE, which is the price to earnings ratio. Now, basically, that's the closing price per share divided by the annual earnings per share, or if you want to, the annual earnings per share is the closing price per share divided by the PE ratio. Okay, so for Apple, the annual earnings per share is going to be 145.11, which was our closing price, divided by 32.14, which is our P/E ratio, and so that's going to be $4.51. So the annual earnings per share is $4.51. Now, the PE ratio 32.14 tells us that the closing price per share of $145.11 is 32.14 times greater than the earnings per share, which is $4.51. Okay. Now, also in the second row, other than PE, we have the 52-week high, which was 145.65, which also happens to be the high for that day. And the 52-week low was 89.14, which is a lot lower than what we were trading for that day. Then over here, we also have the volume, and that refers to the number of shares traded on July 9th, 2021 in millions of shares. So this is over here 99.89 million shares. And so again, we wrote it out. That's 99.89 million shares. And so that's how it would look as if you wrote it as a whole number. And the second one is the average volume. So that's the average number of shares traded per day in millions over a fixed period. The average volume is provided for comparison purposes, basically. Now, since the volume of shares traded on July 9th is greater than average volume, we see that the stock was heavier than normal that day. So this is what it traded for on that day. In average, it roughly does 77.19 million shares per day. So, it's 22 million shares per for that one day over what it normally trades at. And then we have also that final number, which is the market cap. And that refers to the total value of all a company's shares of stock, given here in trillions of dollars. So $2.42 trillion is what the market cap is. So that's the value of the company. So written out, that's a big number. Okay. Now, the chart doesn't include information about dividends that Apple pays to its shareholders on a quarterly basis. But on May 13th, 2021, Apple paid a dividend of 22 cents per share. So if you own, for example, 1,000 shares of Apple stock, you would have received 0.22 times 1,000 or $220. So if the company you invest in pays dividends, that's a good thing because, if you get some and you have quite a few shares, you're starting to gain a little bit of money here. Okay. So let's go ahead and look and see if we can solve this here problem. And basically, what we're wanting to do is use Facebook in this case to solve the values up here of what we're looking for. So looking at what we just have been doing, we're going to plug it in. So what was the closing price on a share of Facebook stock on July 9th? Well, the closing price in this case was the big number here, 350.42. So the closing price was $350.42, and that's per share. Now, was the closing price up or down from the previous trading day, and by how much? Well, that's the next piece here. it was up $4.77 or 1.38%. So it was up $4.77 per share or 1.38%. Okay. Now, the next thing, what was the closing price on the previous trading day? Well, on that case, what we would have is the previous trading day and that. So we'd have to say, well, we'd take 3.50.42 minus the 4.77, and that would give us our value. So we're going to take 350.42 minus 4.77, and that's going to give us our value for the day before. So that was going to be 345.65. Okay, so that's going to be the closing price on the previous day because that's where it closed. It went up $4.77, and we're at the new price today, 350.42. What were the high and low prices for Facebook shares on July 9th? Well, here is D. So D is right here. So D, we have the high price is 350.71. The low price is 345.26. So those are the highs. And again, that's dollars per share. All right, what were the high and low prices for the past 52 weeks? Well, guess what? That's going to be here. So that's going to be E. So the high price for the last 52 weeks is $358.79 per share. The low was $226.90 per share. So that's going to be our high and our low. So we've got those two. We just kind of circled them down below. So we got those. Now, how many shares of Facebook were traded on July 9th? Well, that's going to be 13.02 million. So if we want to write that out, it's 13.02 million shares. Again, we could just kind of circle that value right there. Now, is the trading volume below or above average? Well, average is 15.69, so it was actually below average. It was below average. Okay, so that's all it's asking. It didn't say how much, but you could subtract those two, and that's how much on average it was. Now, what was the total value of Facebook stock? Well, that's that number down here in the corner. And so the value of that is $993.6 billion. So that's the total value of Facebook stock. And then the last one is calculate the earnings per share. Well, again, earnings per share is the closing price divided by the PE ratio. And so that's going to be 350.42 divided by 29.61. And if we divide those out, we're going to get, now I have to get out of here. So we had 350.42 divided by 29.61. We get 1183.45. So roughly $11.83 per share. So that's the annual earnings per share. Okay. All right. So that's all the different things we can get off of this thing. Again, some of them we just circled, but that's what they are. Others we actually kind of had to write out something and do some calculations. All right, so let's stop there. We'll come back for more.